All right, class, settle down, Professor Zix bellowed, his tentacles waving in what could only be described as exasperation among the GRNs. I've got an announcement that'll make your exoskeletons rattle. The classroom, filled with a hodgepodge of alien life forms that would make a Terran biologist either weep with joy or possibly terror, gradually quieted though not entirely. There were still occasional squelches, chirps, or psychic whispers. We're getting an exchange student, Zix continued, his eye stalks swiveling to survey the room. KLK, a mantis-like being with an uncanny resemblance to a walking salad fork, raised an appendage. Oh, is it from the methane lakes of Titan? I've always wanted to meet a methane breather. The professor's epidermis shifted to a sickly chartreuse. Not exactly. It's from a place called Earth. A collective gasp rippled through the room, followed by the sound of several students falling off their anti-gravity cushions. Earth, squeaked Blorgax, a gelatinous blob that communicated through a series of burps and bubbles. You mean the Death World? The very same Zix confirmed, his voice dropping to a whisper. Class, I need you to be on your best behavior. This is a unique opportunity. A murmur of excitement, fear, and in one case, impending molting filled the air. When will the human arrive? Asked Reen, a sentient plant photosynthesizing near the window. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Ah, said Zix, his tentacles twisting into what might have been a nervous smile. That would be now. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing the school's principal, G-Orb, a being that resembled the unholy offspring of a jellyfish and a disco ball. Next to him stood a small bipedal creature that most of the class initially mistook for some kind of primitive cleaning droid. Class G-Orb announced, his voice resonating through the room like an ethereal foghorn, meet your new classmate from Earth, Sarah Johnson. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes wide as she took in the menagerie before her. She cleared her throat and spoke in perfect galactic standard. Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here. The class stared in stunned silence. This was the terrifying Death Worlder they had heard so much about? She looked like she would snap in two if you looked at her wrong. Ever the educator, Zix seized the moment. Class, feel free to ask Sarah any questions you might have. Let's make her feel welcome. For a moment, no one moved, then slowly KLK raised an appendage. Yes, KLK, Zix prompted. No offense, KLK began, his mandibles clicking nervously, but aren't you a bit small for a Death Worlder? I mean, I could probably bench press you. Sarah laughed, a sound that made several students flinch. Oh, trust me, looks can be deceiving. On Earth, I'm actually considered pretty average. Our gravity is about 8 ms2, so we tend to be compact. The class erupted in a cacophony of shocked exclamations, ranging from impossible to by the great void, how are you even alive? Blorgax burbled in astonishment. Yeah, it's no big deal, Sarah shrugged, then grinned mischievously. Want to see something cool? Without waiting for an answer, she casually walked over to Zix's desk, a massive slab of neutronium alloy designed to withstand the various acidic, corrosive, or just plain weird biology of the student body. With seemingly no effort, she lifted one end off the ground. The class went dead silent, save for the sound of Reen's leaves rustling in shock. Holy photon torpedoes, whispered Blorgax, his gelatinous form quivering in awe. Sarah gently set the desk back down and turned to the class, her smile a mix of pride and sheepishness. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have done that. It's just, you guys look at me like I'm made of glass or something. Zix, who had been rendered temporarily speechless, finally found his voice. That desk weighs over 500 kilograms. Oh, Sarah said, looking genuinely surprised. Really? It felt pretty light to me. Must be the lower gravity here. The class erupted into excited chatter, with students falling over themselves to ask questions. How fast can you run? Can you breathe fire? Do you eat stars for breakfast? Sarah laughed again, this time causing only a minor flinch from the class, one at a time. I can't breathe fire, and I definitely don't eat stars, although she paused, a mischievous glint in her eye. I did have a pretty spicy burrito for lunch yesterday. This comment was met with blank stares. Sorry, Sarah said, Earth joke. To answer your questions, I can run pretty fast by your standards, I guess. Our top athletes can do about 45 kilometers per hour in short bursts. More gasps and murmurs followed. As for eating, she continued, we're omnivores. We can eat a wide variety of things. In fact, some of the stuff we eat for fun would probably kill most of you. Like what? KLK asked, leaning forward in morbid fascination. Well, Sarah said, tapping her chin thoughtfully, there's this thing called ghost peppers. They're so hot they can cause chemical burns. Oh, and we drink ethanol for fun. Ethanol, shrieked Reen, his leaves curling in horror. But that's a solvent. Yep, Sarah nodded. We call it alcohol. It's pretty popular at parties. The class looked at her as if she had just announced she enjoyed bathing in antimatter. Sensing the growing unease, Zix decided to change the subject. Sarah, why don't you tell us about your planet's environment? I'm sure the class would be fascinated to learn about Earth's unique challenges. Sarah's eyes lit up. Oh man, where do I even start? We've got everything from scorching deserts to freezing tundras. Our oceans cover most of the planet and are full of creatures that would give your nightmares. We've got storms that can level entire cities, volcanoes that can blot out the sun, and don't even get me started on Australia. Australia? Blorgax burbled curiously. It's a continent where pretty much everything is trying to kill you, Sarah explained cheerfully. Poisonous snakes, venomous spiders, sharks, crocodiles, and these cute little bears called drop bears that fall out of trees and maul you. The class collectively shuddered, but that's nothing compared to our history, Sarah continued, oblivious to the growing horror on her classmates' faces. We used to have these huge lizards called dinosaurs. Some were as tall as buildings. They ruled the planet for millions of years until a giant space rock hit us and wiped most of them out. A planetary impact, Reen whispered, his chlorophyll draining from his leaves. Yep. But don't worry, that was like 65 million years ago. We've had plenty of other near misses since then, but we're still kicking. The class looked at each other, a silent agreement passing between them. Humans were insane. Zix, sensing the mounting tension, decided it was time for a different approach. Sarah, perhaps you could tell us about some of your species' achievements. Surely a race that can survive such challenges must have some impressive accomplishments. Sarah's face lit up like a supernova. Oh man, where do I even begin? We've done some pretty cool stuff, like we went from our first powered flight to landing on our moon in just 66 years. The class blinked in unified confusion. Is that fast? KLK asked hesitantly. Sarah looked at them, her excitement dimming slightly. Yeah, it's really fast. Most species take centuries, if not millennia, to achieve space flight after discovering powered flight. We did it in less than a human lifetime. The implications of this statement slowly sank in, causing a ripple of unease through the classroom. But that's old news, Sarah continued, her enthusiasm returning. We've got rovers on Mars, we've visited every planet in our solar system, and we're working on faster-than-light travel. This declaration was met with stunned silence. Impossible, Blorgax burbled finally. FTL travel is a pipe dream, the energy requirements alone. Oh, we've got some ideas about that, Sarah interrupted casually. There's this thing called the Alcubierre drive. It basically warps space-time around the ship. We're still working out the kinks, but we're pretty sure we can make it happen. The class looked at her as if she had just announced she could juggle black holes. Zix, his tentacles twitching nervously, decided to steer the conversation in a less existentially terrifying direction. Sarah, why don't you tell us about your hobbies? What do young humans do for fun? Sarah's face lit up again. Oh, tons of stuff. We play sports, watch movies, read books. Some of us like extreme sports. Extreme sports? Reen asked hesitantly, dreading the answer. Yeah, like skydiving, where you jump out of perfectly good aircraft for fun, or free climbing, where you scale sheer cliff faces without any safety equipment. Oh, and there's this thing called bull riding, where you sit on an angry 1-ton animal and try not to die. The class stared at her in horror. But my personal favorite, Sarah continued, oblivious to the mounting terror around her, is scuba diving, exploring the depths of our oceans. That doesn't sound so bad, KLK ventured cautiously. Oh, it's awesome, Sarah enthused. You get to see all sorts of cool creatures like great white sharks. They're these huge predators with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Sometimes we even swim with them in special cages. You willingly put yourselves in proximity to apex predators for fun? Blorgax asked, his gelatinous form quivering in disbelief. Well, yeah, Sarah shrugged. It's not that dangerous if you know what you're doing. Besides, sharks aren't even the scariest things in our oceans. Wait till you hear about the giant squid. The class collectively decided that they very much did not want to hear about the giant squid. Zix, sensing the growing unease, attempted to change the subject once again. Sarah, perhaps you could tell us about your planet's history.